Hello. There's a slightly rowdy group over here with Tim Berners-Lee. Welcome to the Southbank Centre. This is the Web We Want Festival, which is a major new three-part crowd-sourced event here at Southbank Centre. My name's Olivia Solon. I'm the technology editor at Mirror Online, and I'm really pleased to have been asked to host the event this morning. This year, as many of you will probably already know, is the 25th anniversary of the World Wide Web, an incredible system that has allowed for so many wonderful connections, collaborations, and, of course, cat videos. There are some phenomenally exciting speakers today, not least the inventor of the web himself, Tim Berners-Lee, who I like to call Big Tim. Not because he's a particularly large person, but because he's a pretty big deal. And I'm a little bit embarrassed knowing that he's just standing over there, so I'm not going to look at him. But my role for today is sort of the ringmaster. I'm going to be doing the timekeeping. I'm going to be introducing speakers, getting them, making sure everyone sticks to time. But it's worth knowing that all of the talks today are being streamed online. And if you want to watch any of them afterwards, if you miss any of them, you can view them on the Southbank Centre's YouTube channel. And also, if you want to share any of your comments, please do use social media. There's the hashtag WebWeWantFest, which is on, should be on the boards at some point. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the first session for today, which is titled A Magna Carta for the Internet. And at this point, I'd like to invite to the stage Sir Tim Berners-Lee, inventor of the World Wide Web, Jude Kelly, the Artistic Director of Southbank Centre, along with Katarzna Szymielewicz and Nwakanma from the Web Foundation. Oh, and Josh Levy. Two guys on the end. All right. Yeah, this is also cool. Right. Now, I'm going to speak from here first of all because I've got to give you some information, and it's probably simpler from this position. So I'm Jude Kelly, the Artistic Director of the Southbank Centre, and thanks Olivia for agreeing to do this today. This came about because when we realised it was the 25th anniversary, at Southbank Centre, we suddenly, as I'm sure you would all do, go, my God, it's amazing how the web has changed our life totally. But we also thought, is everybody across the world going to jump out of bed on the day and go, hooray for the web, 25 years today? And then I suddenly thought, well, they're not, are they? They're not going to do that because they're not even aware that once upon a time it didn't exist. That's a lot of digital natives don't even know it didn't exist. And then other people have just got into that place of taking it for granted. And at the moment that I realised that taking it for granted is one of the greatest problems of holding on to things that are precious, whether it be your own romantic entanglements or water or the climate, then I began to fear that unless we celebrated the web as we know it, then it would disintegrate. And that made me start thinking, well, is it already disintegrating in many ways? And then talking to Tim, I realised that he was on a personal mission, along with other colleagues, and that's what we're going to talk about, to make people address the fact that we have got something which truly is important to humanity, and we could squander it and allow it to be corrupted terribly easily. And if we do that, we will be to blame in some way. I mean, not dishing the blame out personally this morning to any of you, but we have it within our power as humans to be agents for change, and we also have it within our power to sit back and just let things pass over us. And which of those are we going to choose? And so we decided to do a festival that would say to whoever ordinary people are, past tech specialists into most people and say, can we build a commitment to the web? And this, of course, is the big thrust of what the Web Foundation are doing, which is that they've created this campaign called The Web We Want. And I'm going to tell you something about the Web Foundation because it saves Tim having to just give you lots of facts so we can talk about the interesting things. But it was established in 2009, the Web Foundation, and it was to establish that the open web is a global public good and a basic right, and ensure that everyone has access to it freely. And the Foundation focuses upon three things: access to the web, creating equality of voices online, and encouraging greater citizen participation through the web. This is all the thing that Tim has set up as the Foundation. It's working in more than 90 countries, with 60 diverse organisations so far, And it's looking at really important original research, trying to track what's happening to the web. It has only 25 staff. So you'd think, wouldn't you, the Web Foundation would have hundreds of staff. No, it has 25 staff working in Cape Town, London and Washington, and it doesn't have much money. I don't think it's unfair to say that. It doesn't have much money, does it? It doesn't have any money, really.
Hardly any.
Hardly any money at all. And it's important that we understand that. There are not some people all over the world sorting all this out. There are very few people, unfunded, trying to work out how we protect and maintain and have the web we want. So the movement of the Web We Want campaign specifically began to celebrate this 25th anniversary, and it's calling on everybody, for all of us, to protect and help shape the web. And the movement's working globally, nationally and locally, responding to threats and opportunities. And this weekend is the first of the call-outs that we're giving at Southbank Centre as one of the Web We Want partners to say this is about us, all of us. Tim's going to talk specifically a bit about the Magna Carta for the internet, which is the kind of splendid and fascinating metaphor that's being used to kind of give a kind of visualization to what we mean. And he's also going across the whole world, as far as I can see, trudging around, trying to get each nation to have a campaign for each nation to have a digital Bill of Rights, and for that to then amass into a global Bill of Digital Rights. And so the Magna Carta process is being launched this weekend, and that's what I'm going to talk to Tim about initially, or ask Tim to talk about initially. The whole weekend, obviously, as Olivia says, is crowdsourced to find out from everybody, and it's not just in the UK but across the world, what are the great jeopardies as well as the incredible opportunities that the web is affording us and frightening us about. But let me now cross over back to Tim and talk really about the Magna Carta process and what's galvanized you into doing it.
So, I suppose a good reason for people to take the web for granted is that it's been 25 years, and it seems to have gone along pretty smoothly for some people. But in fact, the difference from when I started is massive. That when we started, when I started, the internet was a very much is an academic thing. It's put together with a very strong spirit of openness. Everybody just contributing their ideas and building on top of each other's ideas. And the computers are all connected to each other, and they carried each other's traffic just because it was there was no payment involved. They would basically, universities doing research, so that they carried they would store another person's email and send it on, and people, because that was just a reasonable thing to do. So it was, so in a way, when the system was designed technically, and when it took off across, before the web, remember the internet was designed 45 years ago, and it's a wonderful system that's endured that over a period of time when the speeds on the internet have gotten a lot faster, but the basic protocol and the design is still the same. And it was designed in a way that allowed me, 20 years after in 1969, the internet was designed by Vint Cerf and people. In 1989, I wanted to design the web, and I could do that because they designed the internet to be completely open, to be permissionless, we sometimes call it, a place where you can just connect and you can write a program on your computer, and you make that computer program talk to other computer programs across that are connected to other parts of the internet. You don't have to ask anybody in the middle. There was no middle. So it's that wonderful design that allowed the web to spread. We tried to keep the web designed like that as well. And so the early days of the web, also that was the spirit. But because it's now become such a huge system, because it's involved with so many parts of our lives, the ability to control it becomes such a powerful weapon. The ability for government to be able to spy on its citizens and arrest the ones that don't like its policies and throw them in jail. The ability of a corporation to spy on you and figure out exactly what sort of an ad would suit the ability of a political party to spy on you and see what sort of things are important to you and present a website to you so that you think that they're in favor of what you think is important, whereas in fact they provide the same website to somebody else in a different way. The ability of people to be sneaky by spying and the ability of people to block out or slow down traffic going to their competitors has suddenly raised the spectre of ways of gaining incredible power. And so what's happened then recently is we've had a few minor crises and some averted crises and some crises which are still running, where a large company or a large government, or very often nowadays you can't, governments and companies working together very closely, have broken down the openness that we relied on, broken down the fact that, the assumption that I could just, if you put up a website, you create some new thing, whatever it is that comes into your imagination to one day to create, and then I can connect to it, whoever I am. So that the basic principles of openness, it turned out, have been threatened. And we realize that now, what is in fact, we realize that the things that we in fact have come to take for granted up till now are really human rights. They're really about free speech. They're about some things we knew were human rights beforehand, like free speech, the ability, the right to assemble, and so on, the right to a certain extent, things which in the pre-web world were thought about human rights. But then when you look at the internet, the ability, for example, to do an internet search, and for the search engine to really give you, ranked in order, the most popular things out there, not give you a tweaked version, not give you a sort of biased version of what's happening on the web. The ability to be able to, in a way, sample the entire web in a moment, that's very powerful. And in a way, that's a new right. That's a right that we can't really express in terms of the normal human rights. So that's where, when I started to talk about human rights, the idea of a Magna Carta for the internet suddenly resonated. Suddenly people started, that was the word that picked up. Oh, what you're doing, Tim, it's like a Magna Carta. It's like you want a Magna Carta for the internet. And in fact, yes, 800 years ago, 799 years ago to be precise, there was, life was fine apart from that there was this king who just could not be trusted to stick within the roles of what you'd like a king to do. And also at the same time there was issue with piracy on the seas, and also people started drawing up laws about not harbouring pirates, so that at the same time what became the Hanseatic League of nations came out of just saying, if we're going to trade using these sort of big boats we have now, which are pretty cool and allow us to cross national boundaries and potentially bring huge economic benefit by trading between different cities, we just have to have some rules about how this works. That we're not going to face, we're not going to have pirates stealing our stuff and then going and living in your cities. So let's have some rules that we outlaw piracy. And so that was the rules they put together for trade, and at the same time they were putting rules about how the country should work, that we shouldn't have, that the king should not make arbitrary decisions, and so the idea of a basic set of rules, which once you've got that sorted out, it can be then you can go back to 90% of the time taking it all for granted. So that's the idea that's come up in this campaign. So the Web We Want campaign really has got 3 pieces to it. The first, which is, if you like, the idealist bit, the bit which is based in that idea of human rights, is for us to have this global discussion, a crowdsourced discussion, like all kinds of people talking in lots of ways, like including sticking up bits of, writing what you think on a piece of paper and back and sticking it on the wall when you're outside there. Crowdsourced discussion towards a common understanding about what these rights are. In some case, just fighting for openness, fighting for, that there should not be censorship, that there should not be spying, and in some cases, more subtle discussions about, anonymity. We think anonymity is important for some discussions on the web, for whistleblowers, but on the other hand, we don't want to have anonymity for bullies. So in some cases, we're trying to draw a line in our society about where those rights should meet. So the first bit is just a big discussion about the principles, and when in fact you do that, you can't then write laws. You can't turn that into law, because the big discussion about principles doesn't explain how, in a given country like Britain, how would that affect the rights of Parliament and the way and the and the internet service providers companies and all the structures we've got here. So the second phase of it is discussions in every jurisdiction about really taking that, if necessary, removing laws which are against the openness of the web and instituting laws or regulations. What does it take? What's it going to take? So the second phase is, in this jurisdiction, let's take those general principles. What's it going to take, and implementing that? And then the third part of it is that the Web We Want campaign is going to have a whole bunch of projects checking whether, helping activists get the changes done, checking that the changes stick continually. There are always going to be, large companies are always going to find a way to sneak their way around things, and instituting specific projects to help people who maybe are living in countries where they don't have that openness, maybe help them learn to use software which will allow them, for example, to talk free, to communicate with anonymity where they wouldn't have had it before. So those are the three parts of the campaign. I'm just really grateful, Jude, to the Southbank Centre for kicking it off, not just for kicking it off, but having a blooming festival around it, which is brilliant. So to really get people discussion, and it's clearly, a lot of people feel a lot of need to really get some of these things straight and to get out, and to put out their, face up on the table the things that they think are the really important issues.
Yeah. Well, I think, as I said earlier, what sort of galvanised me to do it was because I suddenly thought, I had assumed that there was a whole phalanx, army of people all sorting out this issue of human rights and the web. And to discover that, no, that wasn't really the case. And to understand that you're kind of literally going all by yourself, almost, to each government going, how about rights on the web? Have you thought about it? What are you going to do about it? That made me very worried, apart from the fact how lonely that sounds. But it also made me realise that we actually, it sounds like, when you invented the web, it was, well, this is what it looks like. You couldn't have predicted where it's got up to in terms of it being monetized, it being, it's almost like enclosing free land and carving it all up. And so I just wanted to ask you before I turn to the others, which you've managed to create a deal with Brazil. But if Dilma loses power and another president comes in, is that charter that you've got with Brazil, would that become null and void? How much can you get world governments to create a charter and then stick with it?
So what she's referring to is the fact that in Brazil they actually did get a Marco Civil del Internet, a charter for the Internet, adopted as law. In a way, it was... in a way, the Brazilians were very lucky. It's partly they have a tremendous spirit of excitement there. Well, they have a lot of excitement in Brazil. Full stop. They have particular about the internet and its possibility. So they crowdsourced that. And also they had the big Net Mundial conference about internet governance there. And I think they managed to get it through partly because of the timing that allowed the president to sign the bill into existence on a little table at the on stage at the conference. So in a way that was lucky. There was a huge pushback from within Brazil from internet companies who wanted to be able to exploit their users in different ways. They will be ready at every point. They will not sleep. They are very well funded. So they will be constantly looking for ways to upset the principles and to make people confused about the principles. They'll be looking for ways to water down the regulations, to put little loopholes in the regulations, and then to sneakily get by the regulations without everybody noticing. They're all the ways. So so everybody, it will be a question of constant vigilance to make sure that the principle, but the leadership that Brazil has in getting out there and putting that law on the books is pretty good. By the way, Estonia is pretty much out there too.
Estonia, yeah. So, I mean, these are all, every single thing that Tim is talking about and everything we talked about this weekend requires people to go away and do more research, because there's a huge backstory, obviously, to that. But we won't, because you're all going to go and do that, we just have to move quickly on to different elements of this. And I want to come to Nnenna next, which is that, I mean, I was in a conversation just about March, I think it was, when the new head of Facebook for Africa and the Middle East said, you know, it's fantastic news. We are going to make sure that everybody in Africa has an opportunity to be on Facebook, and that's our goal in the next 5 years. And presented it as, you know, a really positive, empowering thing. Now, you're one of the Web Foundation's advisors, and you know, you obviously have your own reasons for being an advisor and being concerned about what's happening on the ground across Pan-Africa around web access and web rights. And I wonder whether you could just give us a snapshot of what you feel, why you are an activist in Africa around this issue.
Hi, people. I'm actually coming off the United Nations General Assembly, and I went there to make noise about access and all of that. When I was younger, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer, and actually got a scholarship to do that. And I said, no, I didn't want to be a lawyer. What I wanted to do was to travel the whole world, eat different types of food, and meet different types of people. But I didn't know you could do that being an advocate as well. But in my child's mind, what I was thinking was that I wanted to have people live up to their aspirations, develop themselves, be happy and free. And then there was no internet. I worked a bit training people in health, in personal esteem and all of that. Then there was the internet. I'm like, that is it. That's what I wanted to travel the whole world and talk to people about. This is what embodies what I wanted to do. And now I've ended up a lawyer and an advocate. I'm traveling the whole world. I'm meeting new people. I'm eating all types of food. Okay. So you can understand that I'm a very happy person doing what I do. And thanks to Tim and others who have brought this tool up to us. So for me, the internet is humanity united. It is identity for people who cannot ordinarily own an identity. I have a lot of stories. One of them is that when I was born, because I was the third in a series of girls, nobody wanted another girl, and I didn't have a name until I was 3 months old. So I was born in March. Until June, I didn't have a name. Everyone was calling me baby. So when they gave me Nnenna, I really love the way you pronounce that name. That's just the sweetest way to do it. My father gave me that name, and I treasure it. So now I've bought Nnenna.org, and my personal email address is nnenna@nnenna.org. It gives me an identity that nobody knows about. And this identity, I have it. I bought that domain name for like years. Don't bother going there anymore because it gives an identity. So for people like me who have identity issues, the internet is real. For people, I'm a Nigerian originally. I still travel with my Nigerian passport. We have problems getting visas and moving around. For people who have movement issues, the internet is real because it transcends boundaries. I'm an African woman, and where I come from, there are taboos around some things. For people who do not have spaces to discuss certain things, the internet is huge for them. You notice I talk a lot. I have my own thoughts, and I have my own mind, and I want to share what I think. For people who want to blog, who want to tweet, the internet, the web comes in handy. I've lived in about 6 countries, and I travel the whole time. I do e-tickets, I do e-commerce, I do e-purchase, I do e-everything. And when I get up, I say, my name is Nnenna. I come from the web. I come from the internet. I'm not kidding about it. So as I go around the whole world, wearing different types of clothes, eating different kinds of food, meeting different kinds of people, I find out that what joins us together is another type of humanity. It can be called the e-humanity. It is the web. I have been on the web at 10,000 feet up in the sky with online onboard access. I've been on the web down below in a cave with data. I've been alone. I've been among millions of people. The web is something, if you didn't have connectivity before now, you understand it. For people who've always been connected, who've had a radio and TVs and telephones, you think it's another step up the connectivity level. But for a village girl like me, it is an entirely new world. So every time I say my name is Nnenna, I come from the internet. It means that identity, it means that humanity, it means that work, it means that finances, it means that family relations, it means that communications, it means that education, it means that access to health, it means that human rights, it means that most of my life is dependent on the web. And if there was no web today, my brain is going to die anyhow, and I wouldn't live longer than that.
So, because that is a wonderful testimony to everything that the web can be and this e-humanity, in Africa at the moment, across the continent of Africa, what do you fear? I mean, you are a campaigner for rights on the web. Are there things that we should be concerned about across the continent in terms of human rights and the web? Do you see an anxiety, a jeopardy?
Back to the original question about Facebook. I think it is immoral to give someone liberty, to give someone access for the price of liberty. I take that again. It is immoral to give access at the price of liberty. And having your data sovereignty should accompany access. So wherever access is, and is not accompanied by data privacy and sovereignty, I think I have a problem to it. There are people who said, oh, now we've got these people online. That's not enough. I fear that as some young people are growing up, and you ask them, are you on the web? They say, yes, I'm on Facebook. That's not enough. They are on a platform. And these days, you can actually be on Facebook without being on the internet. And that is an e-slavery. What we're looking at is that openness to other people, the ability to take the wealth of knowledge that is out there and to share it on Creative Commons. So there are quite a number of fears I have. I have a fear that someone will sell us, will buy us, and will trade us. So that fear of us being merchandised using the web is one of my biggest fears. My other fear is in places where we have, they call it military democracy, in which you are told that you are free, but then you know you are not. In places where there are things you can do and there are other things you cannot do. In places where you don't have free access to the internet, where you have filtering, where you have blocking, where you have net neutrality not respected, in which case you are given a partial access to the internet. I also fear that dictatorial governments across the world, not just in Africa, will now have better means, faster means of tracking down people. Yeah, in those days, they used to listen to, surveillance used to be listening to phones. But now, with that same ID, they can track spending, going, coming, check in and check out, and that makes it even easier for bad governments to do bad things. So these are my fears. My last fear is on access. It's easier for people who are broadband wealthy to take it for granted. the way I illustrate it is, you take me, hi, Nnenna, can you just shoot a 5-minute video and upload it? It's so easy for someone in the UK to make that request. And then 10 minutes later, the person's like, hi, Nnenna, I can't see the video. Do you think you can do that in the next 15 minutes? No, I can't. I can't even do it in 2 days. Oh, no. Because I pay for 1 MB per second, but then I get 223. So my internet goes like this. And then you over there, you have broadband, you are expecting my fame, you are thinking, either this woman is not interested, either she's not smart enough, either she's just plain lazy, or she doesn't want to do it. No, I'm not stupid. I am smart. I want to do it. I've shot the video. I'm trying just to upload it, but I don't have the broadband.
Okay, so it's another version of inequality and the impact of inequality and the assumptions people make about people.
And it's growing bigger. Yeah. It's not just between North and South anymore. It's not just between haves and haves not. It's between high broadband and low broadband and narrow band. That's the other type of divide. Okay. So if you don't have money, if you don't have a job, if you live in the South, if you don't have access to broadband internet, you are shot.
Okay, now there's again huge subject matters about the dark web, the criminals on the web. There's many. When you look through your brochure, you can go and have a chat about all of these things in greater depth because you've raised a ton of material there, and thank you. Kasia, can I turn to you because we're operating from Poland as well as in the world on the net. Yes, the reason why you have turned to activism about the web, can I just ask you to think about that, the thing you fear that's making you attend to it professionally?
Yeah. Thank you. It's difficult and strong, good question. To answer it, I have to move a step back. I'm also a lawyer, and similar to Nnenna, I never really wanted to do that job. But I thought I really care about society and about the issues that society struggles with. So I always wanted to solve problems. I think I always thought that being advocate really means that. It's not being commercial advocate fighting for the bankers to get more money, but advocating for important issues. But it took me long time to find out my issues. And I was in London doing my second degree development studies because I was looking for some more important issues than just legal ones. And it was the time when war on terror became a really big thing. We had all these bombings, Madrid, London, European Union joined the US in war on terror, and we discovered that also in Poland we had black spots where people were tortured and maybe even killed under the label of our security. But really, as lawyers, as human beings, as citizens, we felt something was very wrong. We are in the middle of Europe, we have all Magna Cartas, we have the human rights, we have all the declarations signed, the governments are democratically elected, and people get killed and they get tortured. And our data is collected not because we are suspects of crime, but just because it might come useful for our secret services and police. So I woke up in that world and I thought, why this is going that way? Why it's so wrong? And that was these real issues, the very hardcore issues triggered me to change my career from commercial to become human rights advocate and work on surveillance, because we thought that surveillance is the reason for all that. In two senses. On one hand, the government and the corporations, they know a lot about us, so they can track what we do, predict what we do next, and control our behavior. But also, they control the discourse, the way of thinking, the way we think about security, about freedom, about terrorism. That's being controlled. And that kind of brought us closer to the media and the internet. So then I realized my discovery of the internet really was maybe in 2010, not earlier than that. Earlier, I just took it for granted. It's a nice technology. I can communicate, I can work, I can travel with this. It's easy. But I never thought of that as a tool of power until I realized that these very difficult issues, they happen not without the reason. They're enabled, in a sense, by the technology. And don't get me wrong, I love the technology. I also feel I'm citizen of the world through the web, and I want to preserve the web. But we saw the black side, the very dark side of this being used against us, and I realized that we enabled it. I mean, we citizens Me, definitely. When I was 20 years old, I went to the web and I thought Google is I opened the door to the web through Google. I took it for granted. I didn't realize that it's a commercial intermediary that will sell my data and will control what I do. I just thought it's the best interface and a nice free service. I also did that. And millions, billions of people follow the same path. It's easy, of course, because we were never taught in the school. I'm 30-something years old. I was never taught in the school how to use peer-to-peer networks, how to code, how to communicate online without the intermediaries. So my entry through the web, to the web was through intermediaries. And same happened with people, everybody basically I knew in Poland, everybody I met before I met the hardcore internet activists. So we enabled the commercial surveillance that helped the state do whatever they did with our data, right? And we created the gates that now keep us close behind certain walls, inside of the walled gardens like Facebook or Google services or whatever application you take. Because really, if you go online as a part of commercial service, you give up a lot of what Nnenna already described. You agree on being a merchandise. You agree that they will trade with you. But we were never given choice, were we, right? We were born into that kind of commercialized web. I mean, I'm talking about my generation because Tim obviously had that privilege of coming first and understanding how that all works. So now we are in a difficult point in time, difficult but also very inspiring that we can move back. I do believe we can and we should move back from that point of being merchandise to becoming co-creators of the web and people who actually control how the information flows. But unfortunately, it has to be done on more than one level. It's not just technology. It's not just that we develop another Facebook, another Google that will be peer-to-peer. It will be owned by us. We can do that. People do it. We can join and help them. We can talk about it later. But we also have to deal with the law, with the regulation. Because we got to the point where the very powerful corporations, the internet corporations, they dictate the legal regulations and they cooperate. They want it or not, but they cooperate with governments in enabling surveillance. So there's a lot of legal matter that has to be dealt with. And that became very difficult. So people like us, Jude already said, there are very few of us trying to confront these commercial lobbyists and government lobbyists and fighting for more freedom in a legal sense. And it's a very difficult fight. So anybody here who would like to do what we did in the past, so change from commercial to a bit less commercial and help us fight the legal issues, it's very much welcome because there is too few people defending the other side. And the issues tend to be technical as well, which doesn't really help us. Mm-hmm. But back to what I started, the core are the real problems we see around us: discrimination, exclusion, people being jailed, people being stopped at the borders because of their Facebook profiles, people being basically controlled, excluded, and oppressed. This is real. It's not on the web. Right? The web only enables the real problems. So I encourage you to look for the real problems around you and then ask yourself a question how the web enables or makes that possible, and then fight it, not start with the web. Web is just a tool. Amazing, powerful, but let's use it as a tool, not as a goal in itself.
I mean, it's part of the problem of once you're told that actually the encroachment isn't about you, it's about some other people who are anonymous and who you don't know. You know, we tend to assume that we're okay, and these other people, maybe they're a bit dubious anyway. I mean, the language of surveillance and the language of terrorism, the language of privilege, the discourse, as you say, is one that is absolutely controlling until people feel that to step outside of it makes them an unreasonable, sort of anarchic person. Josh, can I come to you? Because you are also a lawyer, or an advocate, or you were a lawyer? No.
I'm not a lawyer.
Oh, that's a surprise. Okay.
Never.
But you are advocacy director at Access. Yeah.
That is right. Yes.
Okay. That just made me think you're an advocate for some reason. And I know that you want to launch something this morning, a particular website. Is that right?
Yes.
You want to talk about that, which we're going to help you do in a second. Right, but all of the people on the panel are involved in this this Web We Want campaign, all involved in thinking through how do you, across the entire world, form alliance between people of the same kind of mental persuasion that something needs to be done. But each country has very different starting points, and each experience is very different. So even between you, trying to find out how to do something together must be quite challenging. I mean, I know that, as I understand it, there have been 40 previous attempts to come up with a Bill of Rights for the web, and none of them have worked. But this is the one that has Tim at the centre of it, and maybe that in itself is the persuasive factor. But can I just ask, before you launch net neutrality, can you just talk a little bit about from where you stand? Because are you in the States, is that right?
Yes.
I mean, we think of the States, strangely, still, maybe, as the most potentially powerful way of persuading people to remain democratic. Is that true?
Well, that's a big question. I don't know if I can answer that one, but the attempt to unite internet users and internet advocates around the world is ongoing. It's a lot of work to knit together consensus on any issue in any region or any single country. When you're trying to do it across the world, across time zones, among people who speak dozens of different languages, that's always going to be a challenge. This newest attempt to draft a Bill of Rights for the internet, I think, is commendable for its attempt to bring together people who have different perspectives, different experiences of the internet, but who understand and share some fundamental beliefs about its importance and its role in culture and politics and in their lives. I think, as Nnenna said, the internet's important for people politically, but it's also important for people on a very personal level. And understanding its role in people's lives, it plays such a different role in different people's lives, and understanding that and where people are coming from and what they're bringing to these conversations is really important. So we can have that conversation, I think, all day long. I do want to talk about net neutrality a bit.
There you are. So it's up on the screen. Do you want to?
Who here knows what net neutrality is?
Is it male or female?
We have to have that.
It's an it. It's genderless. Net neutrality, so for those of you who are less familiar with the term, is this basic concept about the internet, about the web, that we should be able to access the content of our choosing and the services and applications of our choosing without anybody getting in the way, without an internet service provider or anybody else blocking you or charging you extra for some things and maybe not extra for other things. And it sounds like a basic concept. It's the web that a lot of us have grown up with, but it's not necessarily the web and the internet that we will have in the future because there are a lot of interests vying for control of our access to information. So this concept of net neutrality has come up and has become a rallying call for the need to protect the open internet, the open web that we've all been speaking about here. And so it's a political battle that's ongoing in the US, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, everywhere around the world to protect this fundamental openness, both for people who already have access to high-speed internet and also for people who are still waiting to get broadband access or for whom their countries are still in the development phase. Everybody who is involved in this fight understands that access to the internet needs to be complete. We can't have access to parts of the internet if we're going to get access, and that we can't be treating some services with priority and other services with less priority. Everything needs to be treated equally if we're going to have the open web together. So many internet advocates like ourselves have come together around this concept of net neutrality to create a global coalition to highlight the need for net neutrality and for protections for net neutrality around the world, and to forge a common definition of net neutrality. It seems like it might be kind of easy to do that. It's not easy. There's a lot of different ways of thinking about this concept, even among people who generally agree about what net neutrality means. There's a lot of nuance and there are differing opinions, but we have managed to, I'm going to try to scroll. Yeah. I don't know how to scroll on this.
Does anybody want to help?
Mm-hmm.
Technology barriers.
Yeah, maybe somebody can help with it. There we go. Okay. So we spent the last few weeks forging this definition of net neutrality, which I think is pretty simple. I think it's pretty descriptive. And it's the product of a lot of hard work. And today we're launching it. Today we're launching thisisnetneutrality.org, which is this global coalition made up of, at the moment, more than a dozen advocacy groups from every region in the world, and which I anticipate is going to continue to expand to include everybody who's working on this issue and who's working to protect the open web. And so I encourage you to check out thisisnetneutrality.org. If you work at a internet advocacy group, I'm at accessnow.org. And folks here from the Web Foundation are also working on many of these same issues. If you're working on these issues as well, please check out this site. There's a form at the bottom where you can join the coalition, and you can also check out these. Oops. I'm not going to try to scroll, but you can check out the drop-down menu, and you can see all of the different organizations that have signed on. We're very proud of this coalition, but this is just the start. It's a bit of a beta phase right now as we get this out into the world and start truly inviting people to join on board. So please check it out. Thanks.
Okay, so that was a kind of whistle stop around what the Web Foundation is trying to do, what the Web We Want campaign is trying to do, the launch of the Magna Carta campaign, and the Web Neutrality, which has just been launched now by you. You were here at the time. And obviously everybody's around all day and all day tomorrow as well. So you can have real conversations, like not just online, but in the flesh too. We're going to move straight on now. Olivia's going to jump back on the stage for the next session. But can I really, really thank very much Tim, Nnenna, Josh, and Kasia for starting us off with this debate.